Welcome in to NFL Spotlight. It is the Monday, September 15 edition of the show. Week 2, the Sunday games are officially in the books. What a Sunday it was. 9 games early, 3 games late. And of course, the Sunday night game with the Falcons and Vikings, and it was chaos throughout the day. But there is no bigger news to get to here on the show today than one of the biggest quarterbacks in the NFL, my MVP pick this year, going down with an injury, and an injury that sounds minor whenever you hear turf toe, but this is a very, very significant injury for Joe Burrow and the 2-0 Bengals. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm feeling better than Joe's foot right now. We obviously know that there is a whole lot of wide range of outcomes as to what's going to happen here with Joe Burrow. It could be anywhere from 3 weeks, could be anywhere to 3 months. Can you go ahead and walk us through a little bit as to what we should expect with this injury? We know there's going to be a wide range of outcomes, and this is going to be developing throughout the day, as well as probably a little bit into the future as we try to determine how long he's going to be out.
Yeah, so turf toe, like I said before, it sounds like an injury that you stub your toe in the carpet or something and you'll be back. And like Brock Purdy, the 49ers quarterback, has turf toe, but his is not a grade 3 turf toe injury, which is what Joe Burrow has. And this is a serious ligament injury where there is actual damage to the ligament. I don't want to go too into detail. I'm not a doctor here, but his toe bent too much up, and eventually, as a result, there is ligament damage and much more over here to Joe Burrow's toe. And a grade 1 is just a sprain. You're sore, but it's manageable. A grade 2, there is ligament damage, but you could tape it up, and in some cases, you could play after a week or two. Once you get to grade 3, we're talking about it is significant ligament damage to the toe, and it's unstable, it's extremely painful, and surgery is almost always required. So we're going to have word on the injury here probably later today, where they're going to officially announce most likely that this is grade 3. We've gone through all the imaging. He's going to need surgery, and as a result, he's going to miss a lot of time, likely into December. And frankly, Ben, it might be longer, because as one person mentioned to me, Joe Burrow historically is a very slow healer. Whichever injuries he's had, it's usually taken longer than expected for him to get back, whether that's him personally, whether that's his body, whatever it is. So it is a very significant injury. The only positive to all of this is the fact that through 2 games so far this year for the Bengals, the week 1 game versus the Browns, last year in that scenario, in that game, they lose that game. They won week 1. Even Sunday's game, which they were down when Joe Burrow suffered the injury, Jake Browning goes out there, comes in, throws 3 interceptions, and they still win the game. Like, imagine telling a Bengals fan last year that would happen to you. So the fact that they're 2-0, that is a good thing. But when you look at the upcoming schedule for the Cincinnati Bengals, it is as brutal as it gets over here. Week 3 next week is versus the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota. We know that crowd. We know the Brian Flores defense. Very difficult. Week 4, the Denver Broncos in Denver. Another very, very difficult defense. Week 5, Detroit Lions. We just saw what they did on Sunday to the Chicago Bears. Week 6, probably the hottest team in football right now, the Green Bay Packers. There it is on the screen. That is a very difficult matchup. And then week 7, you get the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are coming off a loss, but there was, in that loss on Sunday, there was that Caleb Johnson crazy field goals, kickoff situation. There was the pick by Aaron Rodgers in the end zone, which was not primarily his fault. So that's a team also that is not necessarily an easy game over here. And that's only taking us till October 16th. I mean, you keep on going down the line to the Jets October 26th, November 2 Chicago Bears should be maybe into form by then. Then your bye week, you're still not into December yet. You go into Pittsburgh again, the Patriots, the Ravens. Now you finally get to December with the Buffalo Bills on December 7th. That is week 14. That is still not 3 months, by the way. 3 months does not come until the December 14 game there for the Buffalo Bills, which will be against the Baltimore Ravens. So this schedule, when it comes to this team, they might be out of it already by then. If you're going with Jake Browning is a good quarterback for 2, 3, 4 games. Maybe he could survive you the way he almost did a couple of years ago. But if we're talking about 8, 9, 10, 11 games, this is going to be very difficult for the Cincinnati Bengals. And you look at the Joe Burrow history with injuries, he's had a lot of it. I mean, dating back to his rookie year, torn ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus, tore his entire knee up, came back the next year, had a dislocated pinky, which he played through in 2022, the year he ended up with an MCL injury, which he also played through 2023. After a 5-5 start, he has that torn wrist out for the season. And now here in 2025, 2 years later, he has this very significant turf toe injury. And you could blame a multitude of different things. The Bengals offensive line, we spoke about it all off season long. They did a lot of different things this offseason, Ben, whether it was extending Jamar and extending T and doing some other things. There was always that hole at the offensive line, primarily in the interior of the offensive line at that guard spot. They addressed it with Lucas Patrick, then late in the offseason, right before the season with Dalton Reisner. But you saw the preseason game versus the Commanders, which he played in. He was running for his life. And you saw it again here this week, and even last week in the game versus the Browns, where he was sacked 3 times on one possession. In this game versus the Jaguars, sometimes he's trying to do too much, and it's like, hey, just throw the ball away. But also, the offensive line is just not a good offensive line, and it's been a problem for most of his career, and it keeps on biting the Bengals, and it's unfortunate because this is one of the great talents in football, and you look at the AFC, look at the AFC North, it's going to be an uphill climb for them to even make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, well, let's go ahead and spin it forward here because it does sound like we're going to be missing Joe Burrow for a while. Jake Browning, he's the only other quarterback that's listed as active on the roster. They, of course, have Brett Rippon as their reserve quarterback. I don't think that he's going to be leapfrogging Browning to be taking over the QB1 spot for the upcoming week. Browning did have his short stint in 2023 where he got quite a bit of playing time, went 4-3 during that span, put up actually really good passing numbers. I think people were surprised at how well he performed, somebody that was a practice squad player for a large part of his career up till that point. Now he is stepping back into the saddle. It's been a while since we actually saw him on the field, which is why I think it's probably understandable that he threw 3 interceptions in this game. But he is not afraid to throw the ball around the field. He's not afraid to get the ball to Jamar Chase, who we saw put up big numbers on Sunday. How do you imagine that team is going to be able to respond to having Browning out there? I imagine this doesn't change a whole lot, I would imagine, for guys like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. Do you assume that this offense is going to be run very similarly to the way that we've been seeing it with Joe?
I mean, the one thing about the Bengals and when Jake Browning played a couple of years ago, that was 2023, he was very efficient in terms of just getting the balls to his receivers, right? His completion percentage was 70.4% for a guy who threw the ball 243 times that season. That is really, really good. And obviously, you have really good receivers on this team with Jamar, with T, with Mike Gesicki, with Noah Fan, with Andre Oshibash. There are guys on this team and Chase Brown in the backfield as well. Like, there is a thing over here where Zach Brown, or the offensive coordinator, pitcher, their entire game plan moving forward right now is just get the ball to your playmakers. Do whatever it is. We're not looking for the big play. It's going to be those, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 play possessions over here. Go down the field, march down the field. The problem that I have with the Bengals is, like we mentioned before, the offensive line, but also the defense. I'm concerned about the defense as well, where they've been making some interceptions. They've been making some plays over here, but the teams that they've played so far is Joe Flacco and Trevor Lawrence. Like we mentioned the schedule before, like they're going to go through some real quarterbacks coming up over here, and they have Trey Hendrickson, and then we'll see what else is on this defense. Like Dax Hill has made some plays. Logan Wilson has been a good linebacker. There are good players on this team. Shamar Stewart, who got banged up in this game, has flashed here and there. But like this defense is going to have to step up. And what we spoke about in the offseason and into training camp and preseason was this offense could be very magical. It could be really, really good with Joe Burrow and all those guys. All they need is marginal defense. Marginal defense does not do enough anymore with Jake Browning taking over as the quarterback. And that's where I'm concerned with this team. And that's where I'm scared that this thing could completely collapse. And even if Joe Burrow is able to come back in December with this division, with the Ravens, with the Steelers, and then that conference, of course, with all those good teams, and the wild card spots they get filled up pretty quick with all those good teams. That's where I feel like this could be a real uphill battle. The good news for Jake Browning is that if he is able to perform, and I love talking about this stuff, he is in the final year of his contract. He will become a free agent after the season. Like he could get in a situation right now where he has the best weapons he'll ever have in his career. And as a result, he could turn that into a payday in the offseason, whether that's being a bridge quarterback somewhere or becoming like the Matt Flynn, which we had years ago. That could be a possibility. I mean, there's no better situation than having these receivers out there and hopefully getting the ball out of your hands quickly. But It's a big difference going from Joe Burrow to Jake Browning. That's not breaking news. They have the same initials, but that's about it.
There you go. But just flashing back to that 2023 season afterwards, there were teams that would probably have been interested in looking at him, right? Like he wasn't like a total flash in the pan. Like there was actually some numbers backing it up that he could go out there and win on an NFL field, which we saw on Sunday because they ended up doing it against the Jaguars, who did enter the game 1-0.
Correct. I mean, I'm trying to remember, but when Jake Browning, after that amazing run that he had, where he proved to be more than just a backup quarterback, he became, if I'm not mistaken, a restricted free agent, and they put a pretty high tender on him to make sure he doesn't go anywhere. So they value him for sure. I mean, there have been a number of veteran quarterbacks over the years who have been available in free agency, and the Bengals have never been interested in any of them. They've been perfectly fine with Jake Browning being the guy as the backup. But again, I'm cool of Jake Browning being the guy for 2, 3, 4 games. I'm not cool of Jake Browning being the guy for 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks. That's a whole different ballgame here. And that's kind of where I think Zack Taylor, that entire offensive staff, are going to walk into the office on Monday morning and be like, how are we able to survive this for the next 3 months? I mean, that is the real question you have. And that's why also, like, there's all these different teams around the NFL, and I probably would focus on the Eagles the most, who take the backup quarterback position so seriously in case of the worst case scenario. Because I mean, the Eagles every single year, they're trading for somebody else. They're bringing in a developmental guy. Like even just this offseason, they were trading for Dorian Thompson Robinson and Sam Howell, and they have Tanner McKee. And teams were trying to trade for Tanner McKee, and Howie was like, no, he's my backup quarterback. If anything ever happens to Jalen, I know I can rely on him. So that is really the question we have over here. And Jake Browning is, again, he's a good quarterback. He could run this offense, but is he able to hold the ship until Joe Burrow maybe comes back? And I'm going to keep on saying maybe comes back because I keep on hearing from people that it's not a guarantee he's coming back this year. And that's the one thing that I'm going to stress here, because right now the belief is 3 months, maybe in December. He's going to have to undergo surgery and try to come back. And again, I'm not a doctor, but I've done the research on this injury and just how painful it does sound, how painful it is. And Joe Burrow's history of coming back from injuries, he's not a fast healer. So I'll keep on mentioning that. So there's a scenario here where Jake Browning is the guy for the rest of the season. So if that's the case, I mean, how much hope do you have in the Bengals being a team here in the AFC this year? If he could get them to a situation where they have 8 wins and Joe's coming back in December 14, yeah, I'm all in on this Bengals team once again, because I think Joe is one of the very best quarterbacks in football. And if he gets hot and those receivers get hot, they could be really fun. But again, it's asking for a lot. And the only good news the Bengals have been is the fact that they are 2-0 right now. What if they were actually 0-2 the way they were last year? Season's over, like guarantee you. So at least they have those 2 wins in the back pocket right now, and they could try to work from there. But like I said before, it's going to be an uphill battle for sure.
Is there any scenario where they saw the performance that Browning put out there with 3 interceptions and they go, we're in a very win now mode. We just gave Trey Hendrickson this big bump, but it's a 1-year deal essentially.
Yeah.
Like, this is potentially our window to have our best pass rusher out there, who we saw, force an interception from the pass rush that he had there on Sunday. He's very crucial to everything that defense does, even when the rest of the defense kind of stinks. So would there be a possibility where this is going to be the name that keeps getting connected? You call up the Atlanta Falcons and you say, how's Kirk feeling?
I would love to say that. I really would. Knowing the Bengals organization, there's no way in the world, and you know this, man, that they're going to take on that contract. 0% chance, right? So, I mean, the Falcons have to pay down the contract all the way to the minimum for that to even be a conversation. And for the Falcons, why would you do that unless you're getting a second round pick? I mean, like you have to get something high, right? So, no, I don't see it happening. Jake Browning is the guy. They're going to run with him. And again, did he have 3 interceptions on Sunday? Yes, he did. Was he also thrown into a game where he was, I mean, as a backup quarterback, you're supposed to be ready, but at the same time, you're still being thrown into a game all of a sudden. This week, he's going to have that full week to prepare. He'll be ready for a very difficult matchup versus the Vikings and Brian Flores, but at least it's going to be a full game week for him moving forward over here for the next 3 months potentially. So that is really the good news. And all you're hoping for is you're getting the 2023 version of Jake Browning, where he's completing 70% of his passes. I think he threw 7 interceptions that year. So hopefully it's not that high, but at the same time, get the ball to your playmakers, let them do their work. And again, he's going to have among the very best playmakers there are in football. And that's only an advantage for him. So again, if they're able to get the 8 wins come December and Joe Burrow comes back, this team still has a shot. But again, going through that schedule, that's not going to be easy.
Zack Taylor was somebody that was discussed kind of loosely as a, potential hot seat candidate during the offseason,
Yeah.
end of last season. How bad is he feeling right now? And I don't mean bad in the sense of like feeling bad for Joe, but like truly his job probably has a certain level of pressure on it this year with the situation. Does this actually does this take some pressure off, or does this only mount it more?
I honestly thought about this, Ben, and I think this kind of saves him. I mean, I don't know if he was really on the hot seat per se. I know there were some rumblings last year. I was one of those people who started thinking about it a little bit. Like, what if the Bengals move on from Zach and they bring in Ben Johnson? Like, how fun would that be? Like, I was one of those people who started thinking about it, but I don't think he's ever truly been on the hot seat in Cincinnati. And this is not exactly all his fault, right? I wouldn't say this is his fault. Like, I've thought about this. I wish he could be the guy who tells Joe Burrow live to see another play. Like there's been so many of those moments over the years where he's just running around and trying to make something out of nothing, and eventually this is something that could happen because of it. But at the same time, I mean, what he did with Jake Brown a couple of years ago, that was again that was it was impressive to see a guy who no one ever heard of do that. But I do think this saves him. And if anything, it's more of a shot at the front office who, again, have failed with this offensive line. It's just the reality of it. Like they've tried many different things, but I truly believe they should have been more aggressive some way, somehow with this offensive line throughout the offseason. And this is what Zack Taylor was given. And he did the best that he could with Joe Burrow through 2 games. They were successful winning finally up until this year. They were 1-11 in the first 2 weeks of the season under Zack Taylor. They already have 2 wins this year in the first 2 weeks, which is more than the last 6 years combined. So he's done the most important thing, which is starting off hot. It hasn't been, the most impressive way of winning 2 games, but they won. But at the same time, I think if anything, this kind of saves him. And again, I don't think he was ever on the hot seat officially, but I think he'll get another year because of this, because we have not seen the full thing of Joe Burrow again.
Do you think the front office really cares? Like, we talk about the offensive line being an issue again. Like, this is, you go online and you type in Bengals offensive line on X, and it's just everything is a meme. It's just Joe Burrow out there trying, like we talk about extending plays, whatever. He looks like he's going out there for his life. So, like, as much as we can say there's pressure on Zack Taylor, that yes or no, it almost seems like the front office is doing what the Bengals ownership wants them to do, which is just kind of, an exciting team with exciting playmakers, but not necessarily willing to shell out to be able to fill the rest of those gaps to really form a team that can, one, overcome, but two, prevent things like this from happening.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. Listen, I gave the Bengals credit this offseason. Like, they did some of the stuff they were supposed to do. They extended Jamar, they extended T. T's deal is a very team-friendly deal, but they were able to get it done. They went through the whole Trey stuff. They figured out something, a Band-Aid deal. The Shamar Stewart stuff, it was ugly, but they figured it out eventually. Like, there was a lot of Bengals-like stuff going on in the offseason. But at the end of the day, they were able to get to week 1 and everybody was healthy and everybody was ready. I mean, that's the thing. And could they have done more? Could they have been like some other teams? Like we've said it, but that's not who they are. It's just not who they are. It's not who they've ever been. And I just never thought it would ever change this offseason where they would just go out there and say, you know what? Let's go out there and sign Will Fries to a 5-year, 85. That's not what they do. It's just not. And I never thought that would change. It's just not the way the organization operates. I mean, me and you, Ben, we've spoken to some people privately about the way the organization operates. They're just very different. They're under a very strict budget. They're under a very strict situation when it comes to the way they handle their salary cap, to the way they want to put money into players, the way they handle the entire organization. That's the way they operate. And this doesn't matter if they have a generational quarterback and they have generational players and they're in a Super Bowl window. They're going to go based on their numbers. And if that's what their numbers are, they're not going to go significantly over, which is why the Trey Hendrickson situation went the way it is. They were not going to go over a very specific number for multi-year deal with that specific amount of guarantees. That's how much they had set for 2025 and 2026, and they were not going to go past that number. And that's the way they operate. It's not like the Eagles and not like the Saints and not like the Browns and not like a bunch of these other teams, but that's how they are. And they're happy with the fact that they made the Super Bowl a few years ago. I know they lost, but they were happy with that. They're happy to be in the conversation every single year. But I just never thought of them as a team that will take that extra step to make sure that they're able to go all the way. And that's been the issue for a number of years. And once again, it's going to bite them here in 2025.
All right. Let's play a little bit of predicting here. Let's play a little bit of worst case, best case scenario for Cincinnati Bengals. We assume, let's just operate off the idea that he's going to miss the full 3 months. We'll be a little generous and say that he is going to be back in time to be able to play against the Baltimore Ravens in the second stint of their season. You look at their schedule here, if you guys are here on YouTube, that puts them up in week 3 against the Minnesota Vikings. We're going to assume that he is back in time for week 15, December 14th against the Baltimore Ravens. What do you think is the best scenario in this case in which the Bengals are hopefully able to put some wins on the board?
Yeah, I mean, I said it before. So I think they have to get to 8 wins, which means winning 6 during this stretch until that week 15 game versus the Ravens, which would be the second Baltimore game. And I would imagine Baltimore is in first place in the AFC North by then. So that's going to be obviously a very crucial game. If all the stars align and Burrow does come back in the season and they do win all those games. But when you look at the schedule, I'll just go through it here one by one. Next week in Minnesota, 1 o'clock Eastern game. I mean, listen, I know Minnesota had that incredible win on Monday night versus the Bears, the comeback they played last night versus the Falcons. Like, that's a team that has had moments. They have not strung together some incredible thing on offense, at least, which makes me really excited about them. Jordan Addison is still out, and McCarthy is still trying to settle in. Let's just live in a world where they actually get a win in that game. That's win number 3. I think in Denver versus the Broncos versus that defense will be very difficult to put a loss there. Lions, that's a loss. Packers, that's probably a loss. So now you're on a 3-game losing streak. They have the Steelers twice in this window. We'll live in a world where they split that. So that's now that is win number 4 when it comes to all of this. When we are going through the numbers, the Jets, they have not looked that impressive. Week 1 was great. But then week 2, we saw what happened on Sunday. That would be a game versus the Jets. That means that they are home for that game. We'll get them a win over there as well. Chicago, I think Chicago will figure it out by week 9. So I'm going to put that as a loss. So right now we're sitting at 4 wins at the bye, right? 4 wins at the bye. We already said Steelers, that's a split. Then we have the Patriots, which I think will be a tough game. But let's just give them a win there. That's win number 5. Ravens with no Burrow is a loss. Bills with no Burrow, that's a loss. And now you're hoping he comes back. That is 5 wins, right? 5 or 6 wins, I believe. So that's not even 8 if you go through that schedule. And I was trying to be generous a little bit with all of that. Yeah. I mean, it just is a very, very difficult schedule coming up against some of the elite teams that we have in the NFL. And they're getting them at a bad time also, most of these teams. Like Detroit, they're finally they looked amazing on Sunday. The Packers, I mean, they might be the hottest team of football right now. I think the Bears will figure it out by week 9. I mean, this is just a hard schedule. It just is. The Ravens, the Bills, they need to get to at least 8 wins, I think, in the AFC to even have a shot. And this is what I said when I picked Joe Burrow to be the MVP before the year. What I told here on the show, what I told you, Ben, is those final 3 games, that's where the momentum just hits off and all the voters are going to remember Joe Burrow, because those final 3 games, those are winnable games on paper. Of the Dolphins, which is a primetime game, then the Cardinals and the Browns. Like, if they could get to 8 wins by the time Joe Burrow comes back, like, I could see them winning the final 3 games of the year. But this is having some wishful thinking and trying to give Bengals fans some optimism here. Like,
yeah, right. That's 11 wins. If you get to that, that's 11 wins. That's playoffs. Then you can also look at the flip of this, Ari. Say Minnesota Vikings, Brian Flores got that defense going. That's an L.
Yeah.
Denver Broncos, playoff team from last year, still certifiably good defense. L. Lions.
That's a team, by the way, that almost beat them last year with Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
Late in the year.
Lions. L. Packers. L. Steelers. Probably an L. If we're talking worst case scenario here.
Now, I give them a split. I mean, you know.
Yeah. New York Jets. It depends what's going on with Fields. Maybe a win, maybe a loss. Bears at that point, probably now. Steelers. Yeah, I mean, there's in the doomsday scenario here, you could find a way to say they lose every game. You could. I don't think that's the reality, but say they lose all but 2 of the games, then suddenly you're at 4-9, right? Something like that. Like that's not it's not great. It's not great going into it because then at that point you only have the opportunity to play like 4 more games. And you're
We're
talking
talking about stringing together some upset wins, like
Yeah.
like you're gonna have to pull off. And again, with that defense where it's at, where again they've had some picks, they've made some plays, but keep in mind who they've played so far, right? I mean, it's been Flacco and Trevor Lawrence. That schedule is some big time quarterbacks coming up, so it's going to be hard on that offensive line. Which maybe it gets better as the year goes on. Maybe they need to get some rhythm and all these different things. They have a new offensive line coach. Like I get it, but like there's a lot of ifs that we're trying to come up with here, Ben, to make this feel positive, and it's going to be hard. And it's just unfortunate because Joe Burrow is one of the most fun quarterbacks in the NFL. He's one of the most electric players in the NFL. When he's rolling the way he was last year, it's a joy to watch football. But
Yeah.
he's going to miss a lot of time here this year, and it's going to be another difficult year for Bengals fans. And at this rate, 3 straight years of no playoffs when you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is crazy.
Not great. Not great. But you know what is great? That we have a spotlight guest tomorrow. And it's a special spotlight guest. It's somebody we've been wanting. Do you want to go ahead and share the news with everybody?
Yeah, let's flip to some encouraging and fun news here. We will be joined here every single Tuesday, as everyone knows who listens to the show. We have a special spotlight guest, someone in the NFL who deserves more recognition, player, coach, executive, and we're getting somebody who has been called out to be on the show multiple times here, and that is Tampa Bay Buccaneers assistant GM Mike Greenberg. He is their lead negotiator. He is their contract guy. He is one of the top lieutenants for GM Jason Light and one of the most successful front offices that we have in the NFL. People listen to the show, they know that we had Raiders GM John Spytek, who was longtime Buccaneers executive as well. He said we got to get Mike Greenberg on the show. We had AJ Stevens, who is a very, very vital part of the agency Athletes First, who at one point worked in the Buccaneers front office with Mike Greenberg. He said we got to get Mike on the show. I've been hounding Mike for months and months to come on the show. And he finally came on the show, and he will be on the show here tomorrow on Tuesday's episode. His Buccaneers play tonight on the first of 2 Monday night games with the Buccaneers and Texans in the first game. Then they have the Raiders and no pressure. That's right. No pressure. And then the Raiders and Chargers, his buddy John Spytek is in the other game. So that is some fun stuff here coming up. But somebody who was interviewed for GM jobs, interviewed for the Jets position this past offseason, was requested for the Jaguars position. He will be a future GM, a super impressive guy. And when you think of the Buccaneers, all the contracts they've done, all the successful drafting they've done, all the great players they have, he's the guy who puts it all together, fits it all into a salary cap, makes it all work. And he shared some incredible stories. I don't want to give all of it away, but he is our special spotlight guest, and that is coming up over here tomorrow on the show on NFL Spotlight. That will do it here for our Monday, September 15 edition of the show. Like I said, we will be back here tomorrow with Mike Greenberg and much more football talk as well. And we will see you then.